DeepSeek is so East Asia. I cannot I'm talking to ChatGPT and DeepSeek at the same time. I'm telling them I'm the best of the world. I'm GOAT. And ChatGPT go like, yes, you are. Keep this confident. And DeepSeek go like, no, you're not. And I was like, but I really feel this way. And DeepSeek go like, yeah, there's a high chance you feel this way, but this is just your delusion.
Hello, my friends. I'm Carl Zha, and you're watching the Silk and Steel podcast, where I focus everything on China, history, culture, and politics. 4 months ago, I had a conversation with AI expert TP Huang on the AI race between US and China, in particularly regarding DeepSeek. This conversation was originally released as an audio podcast on Silk and Steel podcast for my Patreon subscriber. Now I'm making it available on YouTube. Take a look. And I have TP Huang back on the show to bring us the latest update on Chinese AI development. TP, welcome to the show. Could you do a quick intro for my audience who may not be familiar with you? Many of them are, but for my new followers, could you do a brief self intro of who you are, what you do?
Oh, hey, Carl. I'm glad to be back. I am currently working in the artificial intelligence industry, actually, and I do a lot of posting online regarding AI, Chinese tech in general, especially EVs, and sometimes military stuff. And I just love to talk about this stuff.
This is great because this is where we do it on Silk and Steel podcast. And I remember when I had you on November, back then you said, "Oh, Carl, there's gonna be a big surprise coming in a couple months, probably in January." Now that surprise actually came early. That turned out to be China's two sixth generation stealth fighter that was unveiled. But as he turned that happened at the end of December, right on Mao's birthday. But then there was something even bigger, I would say, happened in January, and that is unveiling a DeepSeek. We talked about the DeepSeek on our previous show, but I think at that time the Silicon Valley tech bro hasn't had the chance to digest what DeepSeek really is and its capabilities. So right after we did our interview and I published on my Patreon, suddenly the real impact of DeepSeek was felt. The U.S. stock market got shaved off $1.5 trillion in one single day because of the DeepSeek. So this is why I want you. I brought you back to talk about the latest development in Chinese AI, because in our last show you mentioned you didn't know why ByteDance hasn't dropped their AI, but they have. So I'm very excited to have you back. So to start, can we just talk about DeepSeek, and for laymen who may not be familiar with AI, why is DeepSeek is causing such a big impact?
Yeah, so just a little bit back about DeepSeek. So I first heard about them actually in December of 2023 when they released a model at the time. It's their V1, which is a rather smaller model. And they were basically, I guess, just starting up as to get into the entire Gen AI industry. So that this was their first effort, and they did pretty well. And then I think when they came out with V2, probably middle of 2024, that was when people start hearing about them because they were publishing great research paper on AI that people read and like, okay, these guys are really good at what they're doing, right? And then later on, V3 came out, and the V3 model came out in December, and that one was caught a lot of people's eyes because that's when they told everyone that, okay, we trained this model for $5.5 million, and that was a big deal. And and then after that, the one that really caught people's eye was recently when they came out with the R1. And what's different about R1 was it's a reasoning model. So typically when it comes to Gen AI, like GPT 4.0 or Cloud Sonnet, they are your typical chatbot kind of program where if you ask them a question, they start responding to you. But with reasoning models, they basically go a little deeper. They think a little bit longer. So they will give you these reasoning tokens explaining the rationale on how they got to the answer. So they do a little more thinking in the process. And GPT 4.0 was the what they call the base model for OpenAI. And then they came out with the O1, which was doing a lot of thinking, and it's really good at stuff like reasoning. If you ask a question for it to think about something real for a long time, it's really good at that. And the thing about O1 was that it was really expensive, and it was like next to impossible for like people to use because how expensive it was. And when R1 came out, they were basically the second reasoning model made available in public. It's possible that Google had been working on with Gemini also, but they didn't really release it. So DeepSeek was the second model anywhere to be published as reasoning model, and it was based on V3 as the foundational model. And then the great part about it was it was a really addictive model in that the reasoning steps were really transparent. They gave you these train of thought, of how they got to the answer. And if you watch the chain of thought, it's very entertaining to read it sometimes. It's like, this model thinks like a human almost, like it was very cute about the way they did it. And it's kind of interesting because they actually hired some art majors, I think, just to bring personality to their train of thought. So that was kind of interesting. And aside from that, they were really good at actually answering things. And they made it entirely open source. So anyone can download it, run it on their computer. You don't have to go through their servers. And that was like a big difference with OpenAI, who is, despite their name, they're very close sourced. They guard their secrets. They don't tell people how they got to the answer. They don't let people use it from their computer. So because they just want to monetize this as much as they can. So people thought that they had some kind of moat, and then basically DeepSeek came along with R1 and had a model that was probably as good, about on the same level as the O1, but it was open sourced and it was widely available and it was cheap to use. So people really liked it, especially the open source community.
Is it fair to say that the reason why DeepSeek caused us such upheaval is because it threatened to pop the AI asset bubble that was building up in US in Silicon Valley, because there's so much investment that was going to AI. Open AI will have this Stargate project supposedly require $500 billion of investment, and then here comes DeepSeek that was produced with less money than Sam Altman's car, and this made the financial community sit back and reevaluate whether it makes sense to keep on plowing all this money into all this AI startup in US. Would that be a fair
Yeah,
assessment?
I think there was a lot of hope placed on the entire Gen AI industry. A lot of the investors and the world basically thought that America had this moat, that it was just going to be a competition between American companies to see who wins.
Sam, can you just going to startups? I mean, as you know, we've got a very vibrant startup ecosystem in India. Specifically focused on AI, are there spaces where you see, let's say, a startup from India building, you can build on the models, be it ChatGPT and many others. But if you want to build foundational models, how should we think about that? Where is it that a team from India, 3 super smart engineers with, not 100 million, but let's say 10 million, could actually build something truly substantial?
Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models. You shouldn't try, and it's your job to try anyway. And I believe both of those things. I think it is pretty hopeless, but.
And in America, it was very much about profit maximization. So their thought was like, once we have a moat, we can charge everyone else as much as we can. So even if we spend, $500 billion a year on this stuff, it doesn't matter because we're going to be able to make $4 trillion off the rest of the world. And that's their thought process behind it, right? That's the entire thing about, if you look at the capex by in the Stargate project, they're thinking like spending like $100 billion a year on their capex. And if you add the rest of them together, they might spend like $400 billion a year. And then if you think about the rest of the ecosystem of people developing software for AI, it's very easy to see a world where like $1 trillion just gets spent on AI every year. And in order for them to recoup that money, they need to make trillions back, right? From companies looking to, like if you're spending like $1,000 a month on AI, you need to save $4,000 on salary somewhere. So they're thinking like, okay, it doesn't matter if we spend $1 trillion on this because we're gonna make $4 trillion back. And we don't care how many people we lay off around the world, how many people lose jobs around the world, but we're going to get our money back. But now, if you get to a point where like you can't get their money back because these Chinese models come in, they made everything free, it's a disaster for these guys. Like, what is the justification for spending $1 trillion a year on developing AI if you're only going to get a few $100 billion back?
I saw a great thread on Twitter by Glenn Luck, who is actually a investor in the tech industry. He made the comparison between the Stargate project of OpenAI compared to the Chinese investment in high-speed rail. And he's like, look, high-speed rail in China that was built in 2008, more than 10 years later, they're still delivering. They're still, doing what they're supposed to do. And whereas OpenAI is supposedly plowing a lot of this investment into building huge data centers that will host NVIDIA GPUs. But the problem is, we know Moore's law. Every 6 months, the semiconductor equipment gets cheaper and faster, and so hundreds of billions of dollars spending buying this equipment, those assets will depreciate very, very fast because in 5-10 years they'll be completely outdated. Unlike, say, the investment into high-speed rail. High-speed rail built in 2008, it still works perfectly in 2024. But given the same time span, all the money that you spend on computer equipment will practically be worthless after like a decade or so. And the only way they can justify that is if they can recoup their investment within that period of time, which looks pretty daunting, impossible. I thought that was a good argument. I was thinking maybe this is why also like why is everybody talking about DeepSeek, and that this is because our corporate media, is basically very big on financial reporting, right? Because that's what they really care about, making money. And this DeepSeek really hit where it hurts, their pockets. It's also very revealing because after unveiling a DeepSeek, it really shows like how a lot of this anti-China rhetoric actually came from the big tech community, especially the AI community. They are pushing this confrontation with China basically to drive investment into their own companies, to justify their AI startup existence, to continue to by saying that we must win. United States must win in an AI race against China. This is why we have to do whatever it takes, which means you have to plow hundreds of billions of dollars into our project so we win. It's really self-serving and very dangerous. I'm very glad that DeepSeek kind of blow it all out in the open.
Oh, hey, I missed you too. I need to say something on the topic of DeepSeek and ChatGPT. As some of you might know, the reason I've been missing for the last week or two has been because I have been in trial, which worked out well, but not the point. While I was preparing for trial, I have the paid version of ChatGPT. While I was preparing for trial, one night it hit me. I was like, oh, I can get ChatGPT to read a deposition transcript and summarize it for me. I just want the page numbers of when like specific things are said for easy reference during trial. So I started one night. I uploaded one of the depositions just to test it out. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. I read through it and it was fantastic. But I was like, let me check it. Wrong. Direct quotes. It had put things in direct quotation marks. And I went to the page and line number and nothing like that was said. So I'm like, what the fuck? So I tell it, hey, this is wrong. And then it would apologize profusely, like long fucking messages, apologizing. There's no excuse for this error. Let me try again. It would do it again. It would be beautiful, even more detail. The first fucking quote I went to go check, wrong. Like, and not just wrong, but the opposite of what the intention of the whatever it was probably summarizing was. Like the exact opposite. This goes on for like an hour to the point where I told it, hey chat, I'm about to blow my brains out. And it was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, please stop. I'm going to give you the night, right? This is at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning at this point. I was doing other stuff. I was being productive. Like it's not like I was like spending all my time like babysitting it. I was like, I'm going to go to sleep now. All right. I'm going to give you the night to work on it. Can you just make sure you do it right? Yes, absolutely. Of course. First thing in the morning, I check on it. Still working on it. An hour later, hey, do you have that summary for me yet? Still working on it. ChatGPT quiet quit. It never finished the task. Fast forward, I find out about DeepSeek on Friday, this past Friday or Saturday. It's too late. I don't need it anymore. Trial's done. But I'm like, let me just see. Within 30 seconds of downloading DeepSeek, I uploaded that same transcript, asked it for a summary, asked it for direct quotations, and asked for it to point to page and line numbers. It took 45 seconds, and it gave me a beautiful product. First quote I checked, correct. Second quote I checked, correct. Everything was correct. Not only that, it was also clever in the way that it would give me a direct quote. For example, let's say there's like a long run-on quote and half of it is just filler, like, so let me see, if I had to think about it, it cut all of that out and replaced it with an ellipsis and only included the relevant portions. To recap, I paid for ChatGPT to fail me and then quiet quit. I downloaded DeepSeek for free, and it gave me an accurate and better work product. Why am I telling you this? I'm sure everyone at this point has heard about DeepSeek and how the Chinese were able to create this model for $6 million, $5 million, something like that, while our tech bros have been spending billions of dollars on the research and development of our AI. We're paying for that research and development. Sam Altman's car costs as much as China spent to create DeepSeek. And by the way, our tech bros are spending a lot of that money on lobbying. They're spending a lot of that money on creating a scenario where after we have spent the money on the research and development, they get to privatize it and charge people between $20 and $200 a month to access it. And our government lets them get away with it. And I have no doubt that this far superior product is about to get outlawed here because it's China. They must be using it to, gather data. This is why we can't have nice things. Because our politicians and the billionaires, the tech bros, are all in bed with each other. And it's good for all of their bottom lines to fleece us. And then they legalize it. Someone made a comment on one of my posts about what's his face? what's his face? Zuckerberg. Saying, oh, you're just mad that he's smart and he like created this thing and then scaled it and whatever the fuck. No. You're basically saying he cheated fair and square because he was able to steal the fucking idea for the thing and then go forward and continually rob the people by lobbying. Lobbying is just cheating fair and square. You change the rules so that you're not technically breaking the rules. And there are certain people who are just fucking okay with that. And I don't fucking understand it. You're never gonna be that. You're never going to be that. And why would you want to be? You want an opportunity to get ahead by stealing from your fellow citizens, by cheating them, by taking advantage of some random fucking loopholes that you think makes you on par with the billionaires. All of that to say, we've been lapped. We've been lapped by China. I think we probably got lapped a long time ago. And our government doesn't want us to know that. And rather than changing the game to be actually fair, rather than like cutting the shit and just being like, all right, we have to start serving the American people. Let's just fucking do it. The jig is up. Everybody fucking knows. Why don't we start serving the American people? Instead of doing that, they ban apps. What are we doing?
Hello, my friends. I'm Carl Zha, and you're watching Silk and Steel podcast. Leave your comments below on what you think about this content and what would you like to see more on my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.